Let me paint you a picture of men and women and why neither of them can ever be happy. This is a generalization. It doesn't apply to every individual, so bear with me. So women want the best children they can have, most successful, and to get that, they want traits for their children, the best traits for leading towards success. And the only thing that they can affect in that way is which partner they choose, which man. So they tell the men, hey guys, compete with each other, fight and struggle and see who emerges the victor. And that's the one that I'm gonna pick for my babies. So the men do, they do everything they can think of. They struggle and strive to improve and compete with each other. And I think of it like a graph, like all the men are down at 0, and then there's the women at 1. Women are kind of like baseline humans because they're the ones that are going to create more humans in the tree of life. And men are at 0, they got to prove themselves, but some of them, just through the random chance of the traits that they were born with, and on top of that, the training that they've had and all the situations that they've been in, they develop their skills and they've competed with other men, and there's also just dumb luck involved. And with all of that combined, some of them just rocket up to 100. So there's all the men at 0, there's the women at 1, and then there's a sprinkling of men up at 100 that happen to hit the jackpot. They did everything right. They won the competition. And then, they're not all at 100. There's some at 90 or 80 or 75. There's a little sprinkling of men up there. And so women, they look up to these men that have made it, and they want to pick from these men because those are the ones that they see as better than themselves, and therefore a improvement to the species. They're going to have their children be better than they were. That's what they want. That's normal and good and healthy. But the pool is very small. There's only a handful of these guys that were able to rocket up to the top. And because of this, the competition between the women is fierce. They want to be the one that gets the attention of these successful guys, so they compete with each other at their flashy clothing and makeup and the way they behave and all this. Women have 2 very different ways of acting. If it's around guys that they're really interested in, these successful guys who have made it, they're so sweet and kind, seemingly, and they're just pleasant, and they put in tons of effort trying to be around and do nice things, give gifts, plan little events or whatever it might be. But then on the flip side, the guys that are down at 0 that haven't made it, that aren't anything special, they just treat them so coldly, so badly. They're very rude. They will be offensive on purpose to hurt them, on purpose to get them to go away. So women are kind of two-faced, generally speaking, not all women. So they have this kind of very cold side and this very warm side. And the guys that have made it, they see the very warm side, and they love it. It is so appealing to them. They see women as these wonderful creatures. And then they'll get glimpses that they treat other men really horribly, and they can kind of see that and get glimpses of it, but they don't really want to acknowledge it because it's too terrible to acknowledge that this person that's treating you so well has this dark side. You don't really want to see it. You want to brush it under the rug. But because these men have so many women competing for their attention, they kind of get desensitized to any one woman, and they kind of decide, oh, I can just play the field and have whichever one I want. I'll see this one night and another one another night, and they don't treat them as anything too special or important. It's like a supply and demand problem. So then the women get kind of bothered and upset by this. They're like, why won't these men that I like commit to me, give me their undivided attention? Why won't they just be nice and kind to me? So then they complain on the internet or wherever else. They say, why won't men just be nice? Why won't men just be kind and love me and be loyal to me? And then this goes out onto the internet, and then it goes out to all these other guys that are down at the 0 line, and they see this and they're so confused. And they're like, what do you mean? I would be totally nice to you. I would treat you like a princess. I'd do everything you want. I'd be totally loyal. I would never stray. I'm right here. Why can't you see that I'm right here? So these guys are confused and they don't get the bigger picture. They don't get that these women are talking about that handful of men that have shot up based on their traits and the women are fighting over. It's not about them. They're still in the cesspool down in the garbage dump. And women don't even see them as options or as they're not real men. They're not men. They're just kind of like these side characters that happen to be in the way when they're walking around or something like that. So this leads to everyone being miserable because the women are upset. They're not getting the attention and the niceness from the guys that they want. The guys down at 0 are upset because they're not getting the niceness and attention from the women that they want. It's like the women are looking down on the 0 guys, and the guys that are up at 100 are looking down at the women. Everyone's kind of looking down on each other. It's like this direction of down looking throughout all of humanity, and that's why we're all kind of upset, and there's no real equality, there's no real partnership. And on top of that, these guys that are up at 100 or whatever, that position isn't locked. It's not like they just get there and they get to stay there forever. They're going to slowly drift down. They have to keep competing. They have to keep striving, keep fighting to keep their position of power. It's basically a position of power. They've demonstrated their competence among their male competition. And if they don't keep demonstrating that, they're going to slowly drift down to 70 and 50 and 30. Eventually, they'll be back to a 0 if they don't keep fighting. And because of this, their attention is divided. Well, it's mainly focused on this competition, because if you want to be the best at something, you have to devote everything to it. You have to devote more to it than your competition is. So they just put everything into it. That's where all the attention is, all their focus is. And women demanded this because women wanted us to compete, to demonstrate who has the best traits to copy. But the guys who are actually able to succeed and demonstrate these traits are so caught up in that game of competing, improving, and fighting that that's all they can really focus on. And then on the side, they're dividing their attention between like all the different women that are interested in them. So they're not even really happy either, these top men, because they're just stressed. Maybe stressed isn't the right word, but they're like obsessed and they have to fight all the time. They're never at peace. They're never just happy and content. They're fighting and struggling and fighting and struggling. They got to keep that position. They don't want to lose it. It seems it's a precious thing to them. It is a valuable thing. They have power. They have a lot of benefits. They have everyone wanting to be with them. But they have to fight all the time to maintain that, unless they are going to drift back down into that sea of 0 men. They don't want to be part of that. So they're not happy either. The low men aren't happy, the high men aren't happy, and the women picking aren't happy. Nobody's happy. But this is all how it has to be, because the species is the prime motivation, the prime factor. We have to obey the species. The species wants us to improve our genetics, improve our traits, always be striving to be the most competent in the environment that we find ourselves, so that we have the best chance of survival and perpetuating the species. That's what it's all about. We're all kind of hostage, and that's why we all have to be miserable. So if in individual circumstances we can find people that we can just kind of tolerate and be happy with, that is kind of a way to escape this trap and maybe claim a little bit of peace and a little bit of happiness away from the species. The species doesn't want us to be content and happy. It wants us to be struggling and fighting and trying to get improvements everywhere we can. But if we can see through that and maybe just kind of relax a bit and just accept some things and be a little more at peace, I think we could find little pockets of happiness there. So I'm optimistic and hopeful about that. It just doesn't always have to be this status, power-hungry, fighting competition all the time. Yeah, that's the base level, but maybe we can escape from time to time. Yeah, I know, this maybe seems like a terrible and horrible way to think about humanity and our situation, but I see a lot of evidence of it. For example, the young people, if you ask them how many are in relationships, it's like 30% of the men and 60% of the women say that they're in relationships. Well, how could that be? 60% of the women are in relationships, but only 30% of the men? The numbers don't add up. There's roughly the same number of men and women, so how could that possibly be? Well, of course, it's because the same women are in the relationships with, well, multiple women are in relationships with the same man, because they're all going towards this smaller pool of men who have demonstrated their success. And this is just one piece of evidence that's proving that my model here is at least somewhat accurate, which is a bit sad. I wish it weren't that way, but I gotta deal with reality and observe reality, see what we see, and the hope is that maybe we can carve out little pieces of peace and happiness despite that system.